Hours ago, maybe an hour and a half ago, the spire of this great cathedral literally collapsing. And what we're hearing, we're in the middle of a renovation project. We know that for sure because we saw the scaffolding surrounding the spire. And clearly there was some work being done. We're told that everybody that was inside of the cathedral at the time has been evacuated as soon as it began. I mean, the pictures, it's so out of control. There's no hope that this cathedral is going to be saved. It's 870 years old. It was Notre Dame, which means, quote, Our Lady, was built in 1160, completed by 1260. It had been modified on a number of occasions throughout the centuries. And its cathedral is the Archdiocese of Paris, visited by more than 12 million people every year. And, you know, watching the enormous plumes of smoke billowing into the city skyline, firefighters clearly are doing everything possible that they can do. Almost immediately thereafter, they thought it was related to the renovation work. I have heard there are some French politicians, I know one was just on Fox, suggesting it might be something else, but it's way too early to go there until we have any type of confirmation. But certainly, you know, we want to get to the bottom of whatever the truth is, and we'll wait, watch, and see. But apparently there have been a series, I guess, of fires in some other churches around Paris that he was referring to. We'll look into that as the program unfolds here. 800-941-SEAN is our number. I don't know how many of you watched Tiger Woods this weekend, but that was one of the most phenomenal sporting events I think I've ever witnessed in my life. I was texting earlier with Jim Gray, who works over at CBS. He and Jim Nance, Jim Gray doing the radio broadcast for CBS, and Jim Nance, I could tell in Jim Nance's voice. Well, I think he's one of the best sports play-by-play guys ever, and he has this versatility. He can do a number of sports, well known for what he does with golf and the Masters in Augusta. And to watch Tiger Woods complete his comeback, he came back last year a couple of times. I mean, I was nervous watching him putt. It was just one of those moments. Didn't you watch it? You thought it was great, right?
Yeah, I mean, in Sunday, he wasn't particularly good on Sunday. He was great on Saturday. He was putting like he hasn't putted in a decade.
He played lights out Saturday. He played smart on Sunday.
He just let everybody fall apart on Sunday.
No, well, listen, I think it was the par 5. He went for it in 2, got there. Great second shot. 2 putts, gets the birdie. He was smart on the 18th hole because he knew he had a stroke to play with. That all he needed was a 5, so he didn't use driver on 18. And then
he knows that course like the back of his hand.
Oh, look at the par 3 8-iron shot that he hit was, a tap-in. I thought that ball was going to go in the hole. I thought he was going to have a hole-in-one at one point. It was, it's great to see. I know everyone loves redemption stories, and obviously he'd been through so much publicly in his life, both his personal life and the injuries that he suffered. I mean, his body...
there's 4 back surgeries.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everyone thinks of golf and tennis like they used to. Watch how hard they hit a serve today. Watch John Isner. You know what I want to do with John Isner? He's a friend. I've become friends with him. He serves 155. He's once served 155 miles an hour. All right, just imagine any one match, and then if it's a round of 256. You got to keep playing all the way through the finals. How many serves you've got to hit? It's 3 out of 5 sets in those major tournaments. And how many practice serves have you got to hit so you can actually play at that level? And there's so much torque. I knew a lot of my son's friends. They all got these stress fractures. Amazingly gifted and talented kids or disc issues in their teens. And don't get me started because the stupid USTA overplays these juniors. They're playing 2 age groups at once. You're playing local tournaments, and you play higher level local tournaments in 2 age groups. Then you get finally into a regional tournament and then a low rated national tournament. And then after the national tournament, a better national tournament. And they have 4 super nationals a year. You don't ever stop playing. It's like you almost have to play every weekend. And at some point, Then they'll have, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They have kids play 2 single matches a day. And if you're playing singles and doubles, 2 doubles matches a day. Look at the torque and the body turn and think of your spine in the process. The way that Dustin Johnson hits a golf ball or Tiger Woods hits a golf ball. I once actually had the honor of watching Dustin Johnson on a practice range. You can't follow the ball at some point. I don't have perfect 20/20 vision. In other words, he hits it so far and it's got this spin, so it's in a perpetual rising motion that doesn't stop. It's like defying gravity at some point. And, all these guys can now drive at 300 yards or more.
They're all influenced by Tiger because Tiger was the one that, he got all bulked up like you never used to see golfers do. Now all these young guys.
They were pointing that out. Jim Nance pointed that out. They all
follow his lead.
Well, he's strong and he's physically fit. And, look, I'm not trying to make fun of some of the older golfers.
Tiger can't hit the ball like these young guys can, though.
He doesn't want to hit. You don't need to hit the ball that far.
Well, no. Well, he gets on guile more than power now. Yeah, power used to be his thing.
Listen, the perfect example of what you're saying is true is on that par 3 that he nearly holed. And he had the tap in. What hole was that? 16. Heading into, 17 and 18 to win the tournament. That was and that was on the heels of the par 5. They had also birdied because he knows the course so well. He knew exactly the distance for his second shot to reach the green in the par 5 and 2. But again, the amount of torque in practice, it's like they've got to hit millions of balls in practice, millions of shots to get to the level. That's why we are in awe of these athletes. We talk about football players and hockey players getting the crap beaten out of them. Listen, all these other sports now, it's the same thing. You're beating up your body. You're doing things that they never did before. You can't compete in tennis. I don't care if you're, playing women's tennis, men's tennis, and not serve the ball 110 miles an hour. Or else they're going to crack your serve, and they're going to get a free point every single time. It's unbelievable. I remember my buddy, I won't mention names. There's a couple of really good people that I got to know. One is a kid in New Jersey, and he was the number 1 kid in the country for a while. He hurt his back was hurt for years. And then another kid out in California, the guy who put on the Tennis Channel, his son was number 1 in the country when he was 14 years old. Both had horrible back injuries. It's just because the torque.
And that's hard to come back from, a back injury.
No, it's either stress fractures in the back. I can identify the names of 16 kids that I know had stress fractures. I can identify others with disc bulges at that age. And it's because they're overplaying them. It's, now they're getting smart. Look at Tommy John surgery in Major League Baseball, right? Tommy John surgery. They're now doing it to kids. That's how
they're doing it to kids before they get the injury.
It's crazy. No, but the level of performance now, we keep, look at, what's the reliever on the Yankees that throws 100 miles an hour?
Aroldis Chapman.
Yeah, Chapman, and he was throwing 97 and the team was upset.
Well, he used to be the anomaly. He came into the league for 103. Now, every team has 2 guys that can throw 100 miles an hour.
It's crazy. Yeah. And then to get it over that little plate, I was a pitcher. By the way, when I was a pitcher, it was either 1 or 2. You're either going to get me on a good day or a bad day. I was either going to strike everybody out or I was going to throw it over the backstop. There was no in between.
Well, I hope you didn't throw a slider when you were 14, 15 years old. I did. Because that ruins your elbow.
I used to take the ball like this, throw it, arc it in the back of my head, and come down like that. And I'd aim the ball at the batter's head. And at that age, they'd back out. They'd back away like a right-handed batter. I'm a right-handed pitcher.
They'd start a fight now doing that.
No. They'd back out, and it would drop in the strike zone. That's how that was my strikeout pitch. And it worked so good. It was a sinking curveball. And, yeah, I started throwing it even on the small mound when I was young. But my elbow's fine. My other elbow's not, because when I fell off a roof 2.5 stories, from my elbow down was totally disconnected from the rest of the arm. It was dangling there. And I went, boom. And somehow I clicked it back in. Doctor said that was 1 in a million shot. And then for all the years, all my buddies lost teeth in hockey because I played ice hockey, roller hockey, street hockey. We played everything.
You've been smart to stay in baseball.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, if you're a pitcher in baseball, you're going to get Tommy John surgery.
Years.
You can't. Well, it depends what position you play. Shortstop or third base, or
if you're a relief pitcher, you can hang around a good 15 years.
No, Mariano Rivera proved that. He was amazing, but that's and he was an anomaly. No one's like Mariano Rivera, and it's just the best there ever was.
You can get yourself a nice 3-4 year contract for $15 million, and you can retire.
Okay, they don't take fat old guys with gray hair anymore playing, Major League Baseball.
You remember David Wells, don't you?
Yeah, I remember. He was still feisty in his old age.
Bartolo Colon is 47 years old.
He was amazing when he came back. I mean, he was still playing pretty well.
He used to throw 100. Now he throws 80 and still gets people out.
CC Sabathia, it seems like he's got a little stick back, which is good to see. I always thought he was a great pitcher. Anyway, we'll see. But anyway, we're watching a lot of stories today. We have, we'll update you. It is tax day. I know many of you are miserable. The only good news out of it is, even the New York Times admits most Americans benefited from the Trump tax cut. That must be killing them. A leading pro-Democrat investment firm is predicting Trump's reelection victory. We'll give you some of the facts on the economy. I actually think the president's saying, well, why don't we move all of the illegal immigrants into all of your sanctuary cities? And to watch the Democrats have a fit over that is amazing. There's still a freak out over the president's tweet of the Omar video about 9/11 with the 9/11 video associated with it. I'm going to explain exactly what this week is going to be and what you can expect. The lying, rage, destroy Trump media mob has one, quote, political bullet in their gun, meaning political attack. So to be clear, everything else is now going to reverse itself in a major way. And when the Attorney General Barr mentioned the word spy on the Trump campaign, he sent a signal. All of this is now going to come tumbling down. Mark Meadows is predicting that there will be criminal referrals with the IG's report. So I'm going to explain how this week is going to evolve before the release of the Mueller report. But we already know there was no collusion. 18 million people each and every year. It was in the middle of a major renovation. Watching the spire collapse, it had the feeling, we were all watching it together. We knew it was inevitable at some point, as it was engulfed completely in flames, as the entire cathedral is engulfed in flames. I mean, even now in the dark sky, you can just see it is all lit up and on fire. Firemen have been doing their very best. And anyway, the frame is burning after the spire collapsed. And I don't think there's much they can do, really. I don't think there's any hope of saving anything at this point, which is a shame. It was actually built in 1160, completed in 1260. Haven't been modified, obviously, at different points and different times. We'll watch the story and let you know any more details that become available. So what's happening this week, they announced on Thursday morning they will be releasing, as was promised, the middle of April, by the Attorney General, that he is going to release the full Mueller report with the few redactions. I'm told it's not really a lot. My sources are saying maybe 10% or so, which would be, well, number one, you can't reveal. It's illegal to reveal any grand jury proceedings or testimony. That you can't reveal that. It's unlawful. So the Attorney General is still governed by the laws of the land. Secondly, yeah, if there are sources and methods that would be compromised, yeah, of course you can't reveal that. Remember, the Democrats were claiming, well, this is what Devin Nunes did. This is the first time in history. Now they're begging for sources and methods to remain, and grand jury testimony, which would be illegal to remain. Now, the most interesting thing, I'm going to go over this again, because I think very smartly, what the Attorney General did, remember, he explained that Mueller's investigation, which went on almost 2 complete years now, had 19 full-time lawyers assisting a team of approximately 40 FBI agents, intelligence analysts, forensic accountants, and other professional staff. They had issued 2,800 subpoenas, issued almost, which is pretty insane, 500 search warrants, obtained more than 230 court orders for communication records, and issued almost 50 orders authorizing the use of pen registers and 13 requests to foreign governments for evidence, and interviewed approximately 500 witnesses. One of them, of course, being the White House counsel, Don McGahn, which I'm going to get to in a second based on a long crime article I read over the weekend. Anyway, so what they concluded was pretty obvious. And what he did is he actually took the words, as the report states. Now, this is Russian interference, collusion, if you will, into the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Funny, nobody seems to care that Ukraine is now begging America to take evidence and saying they did collude and they did try to interfere in our elections, and they're willing to volunteer the information, and they say they did it to help Hillary Clinton. Not one person in the media cares. There's no I believers out there saying what they were saying about Justice Kavanaugh, about the Attorney General of Virginia. There's such phony hypocrites on every level. Anyway, so the special counsel investigation, from Barr's initial 4-page letter saying that he would release it, and now that'll be Thursday morning this week, did not find that Trump campaign or anyone associated with it conspired or coordinated with Russia in its efforts to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential election. That is now the 4th time that conclusion has been made. A 9-month FBI investigation has concluded the same. The House Intel Committee investigation concluded the same. The Senate Bipartisan Intel Committee investigation concluded the same. And then Barr, the Attorney General, says, as it relates to the issue of collusion, and that is that the investigation did not, this is from Mueller's report, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. Okay, it can't get any more clear on the issue of collusion. Now, what does that mean? First of all, it means that your lying media mob, tinfoil hat conspiracy media mob, has been wrong for 2+ years. Russia, 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 Russia. Now, what the media has slowly evolved into is, well, they're moving in numerous directions. They're trying to throw anything against the wall that they think might eventually stick and hurt Trump or justify some ridiculous impeachment effort of theirs. This has been an epic fail of historic proportions for Democrats and for the media. So on the issue of obstruction, the special counsel says that the special counsel's decision to describe the facts of his obstruction investigation without reaching any legal conclusion leaves it to the Attorney General to determine whether the conduct described in the report constitutes a crime. Oh, there's our hope. Well, then it goes on. Over the course of the investigation, the special counsel's office engaged in discussions with certain department officials regarding many of the legal and factual matters at issue in the special counsel's obstruction investigation. After reviewing the special counsel's final report on these issues, consulting with department officials, including the Office of Legal Counsel, and applying the principles of federal prosecution that guide our charging decisions, well, the Deputy Attorney General has been there from day one, the man that appointed Robert Mueller himself, Rod Rosenstein, and I, meaning Attorney General Barr, have concluded that the evidence developed during the special counsel's investigation is not sufficient to establish the president committed an obstruction of justice offense. Then he makes a disclaimer. Well, did you make that decision as a result of the constitutional consideration or Justice Department policies that you cannot indict a sitting president? He said our determination was made without regard to and is not based on the constitutional considerations that surround the indictment of and criminal prosecution of a sitting president. Then he explains, well, how did me and Rod Rosenstein get to this decision? He said, in making this determination, we noted the special counsel recognized that the evidence does not establish that the president was involved in an underlying crime related to Russian election interference. In other words, what would the president be obstructing if he's not obstructing a criminal investigation? For example, people would say because the president kept saying witch hunt, that's he's obstructing, or that the president in frustration said, you know, this is ridiculous. We ought to fire Mueller. I'm sure he expressed it many times, probably, but he didn't do it, did he? Or get rid of Rod Rosenstein. That didn't happen. Or get rid of Jeff Sessions. That didn't happen. Well, he fired Comey. Okay, he fired Comey before Mueller was appointed. And remember, Comey testified and said, I could be fired for any reason whatsoever or no reason at all. I serve at the pleasure of the president. So that's not it. Well, the president wished that Michael Flynn wouldn't get in trouble. Okay, Michael Flynn got in trouble. He did not obstruct a thing. And so I'm putting together in my mind, there's a couple of articles. One I think was on Mediaite. One I think was a reference in the New York Times. No, ABC had a tweet that I saw that mentioned Don McGahn. And I said, okay, it never made sense that the White House counsel spent 30 hours with Robert Mueller to me. Anyway, so he spent 30 hours. Then there was something that, well, he said this weekend or recently that you might be hearing a lot more about me. I spent the last 2 years getting yelled at. Okay. Ding, 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 ding. Oh, he doesn't like Trump. So I'm taking it to the point. Don McGahn will probably be quoted in this thing as saying, oh, he wanted to fire, but it doesn't matter if he wanted to. He didn't. I had to talk him out of the president's venting. Now, here's the other irony in all of this. Do Democrats really care about believing women that are victims of violent rape or sexual assault, or only if it's Kavanaugh, but not the lieutenant governor of Virginia? It's interesting, right? Great question. Do they really care about, you know, they really think walls are immoral when they were voting for them and voting to build them, pay for them, and cared about DACA and Dreamers? No, not if Trump does it. How many instances? It's the same with obstruction. You watch when this comes out and they'll get their 5 lines. Don McGahn says the president was going to do this, but he didn't do it. Maybe Don McGahn takes credit. First of all, nobody gets credit for what Donald Trump decides. If Donald Trump wanted to listen to people, he wouldn't tweet. I'm just telling you, everybody said to him, don't tweet. Don't tweet. You got to stop. You got to stop killing yourself. Stop. Nobody could. He makes up his own mind. You got to stop attacking. He makes up his own mind. So the idea that Don McGahn or anybody else, just because now, do I think the president vented about General Flynn, Comey, Mueller? He was doing it publicly. And he didn't do any of these things. So that's where I think this is going. And you're going to hear the media go absolutely apoplectic. Now, it also goes on to say, in making the decision, well, okay, there was no underlying crime. And then it says, as it relates to Russian election interference, that while not determinative, the absence of any evidence or crime bears upon the president's intent with respect to obstruction. Generally speaking, to obtain and sustain an obstruction conviction, the government would need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a person acting with a corrupt intent engaged in obstructive conduct with a sufficient nexus to a pending or contemplated proceeding. Oh, the president didn't have the intent either, which the statute requires. But here's the thing. You watch this week when this comes out Thursday, and the insanity will ensue. It is their last attack on this, and it's going to die like everything else has died. But here's the good news. By the way, Mark Meadows said today it's highly likely the Inspector General Horowitz will issue criminal referrals.
Well, Jim Jordan and I met with Inspector General Horowitz. He and his entire team have been doing a great job, and I might add an independent job to verify some of the things that we have long assessed as problems. And you're right, Chairman Nunes was with these criminal referrals, the things that he alleges, we've been able to see, even in the non-classified area, some real reason
let me finish this because I'm going to run out of time here. So this is what's next. This is their last gasp, and it will be desperation. But he wanted to, but he didn't. But there was no underlying crime. But here's the thing. When Hillary deleted the emails and acid washed her hard drive and used BleachBit and busted up her devices, what was her intent? Her intent was to eliminate the evidence of a violation of a felony, the Espionage Act, where she had top secret classified information on a mom and pop shop bathroom closet. That's intent. And just like in the case, I believe, but not if you're a Democrat, Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Same hypocrisy. But here's what's next. We're going to have more closed door testimony like James Baker's explosive testimony last week. You see in this testimony, the Orrs, they're turning on everybody, and Page and Strzok are turning on the then Attorney General Loretta Lynch, which asked the question, what did Lynch know? When did she know it? Then we're going to have the criminal referrals of Nunes. Then we have Barr announcing his investigation into the investigators. Then we have spying that he said took place. Then we have Horowitz and the FISA and Jordan and Meadows saying, yeah, there's going to be criminal referrals with that. Then we got the Uber report on leaking. Then we're going to get the FISA warrant applicants, the crown of thorns, the holy sacraments. But the main spire, of course, dating back to the 12th century, collapsed. First built in 1160, completed 100 years, completed by 1260. And they had been in the middle of this renovation for some period of time. The picture's devastating. They still, literally, the next 90 minutes will be crucial, according to the Paris fire commander, in any effort to save any of the remains. As you can, it's just a full-on effort by the firefighters. What I was able to read during the break about these firefighters, that Notre Dame has in its favor the Pompiers Paris, or the world-class firefighters. Somebody wrote on Twitter that they saw their work when he served on a board, and they have strong, dedicated, skilled responders. You know, this is when I give all my firemen friends in New York a hard time. I'm so horrible because you know what? When they're not busy, they cook the most elaborate, delicious meals you'd ever want to have in a firehouse. You want to eat well? I mean, you want to stay skinny? Forget it. It's not going to happen in New York. And then, you know, they work 24-hour shifts. And if it's a slow period, they're allowed, especially senior guys, are allowed to get what they call a little rack time. So in case they're called, and usually the junior guys, the rookies, and you only have a couple of years on the job, they're left cleaning the fire trucks, cleaning the firehouse, cooking the meals, cleaning up after. And it's you know, you earn your stripes, you earn your time. And it's really fun when you get to be a senior firefighter because all the junior guys have to do everything. But then 9/11 happens. Yeah, I don't think the perks match up to the risk of walking upstairs while everybody else instinctively is running in the other direction. But you do it because you're dedicated to saving other people's lives. There was an attempt. It's weird that this happened on Friday, and I'm not making any connection here whatsoever. But this cathedral, there was a bombing attempt on it back in 2016. It was a car that had 7 canisters of gas. And at the time, they had they were able to link it at that time, and I'll explain that in a second. Information they got from intelligence services there, according to then President Holland, accused of leading this Inez Medina, was accused of leading the bomb attempt, posed as a man under the name Abu Omar on social media, recruiting jihadis in that particular case back in 2016 to join her in attacking Notre Dame, successfully recruited another person, a mother of three. She then stopped hearing from the woman, but contacted Medina. And anyway, police then arrested Amel Sakho and Sarah Halvote, all three women armed with knives during the arrest. One accused of stabbing a police officer. Anyway, she was the main woman involved in that incident, was a female jihadist posing as a man to recruit other women as the city was on high alert. Now, that was in September of 2016. 19-year-old woman allegedly led an all-female jihadist cell in France, posed as a man to entice other women to join. And this past Friday, March 20th, no, I'm sorry, that was a month ago. Anyway, there'd been a series, I guess this past Friday she was sentenced, so that's the point of that. And from that incident, but there was a story on March 20th in Newsweek by Brendan Cole, and the headline was Catholic churches are being desecrated across France, and officials don't know why. Nobody is saying any of this has anything to do with this, but there has been issues involving the church being targeted in the past. Remember, before the 9/11 attacks on the Trade Center, remember we had the first Trade Center bombing in that case. So nobody has given a definitive answer. Many have said it's likely connected to the $6.8 million renovations going on. But, in this day and age, you just have to look at any and all potential causes of anything like this. In other news, so the president was interesting this weekend. He was on a roll this weekend. And he called out New York State Democrats over the weekend for giving free college tuition to illegal immigrants, but refusing to do the same for children of soldiers who sacrificed their lives for this country. Now, late Friday night, the president called out the New York State Democratic Party for blocking additional tuition assistance for children of deceased or injured vets. In New York State, Democrats blocked a bill expanding college tuition for Gold Star families after approving aid for illegal immigrants, the president tweeted. No wonder so many people are leaving New York. Very sad. And the president was referring to the stalled state bill that would add funding to a program that provides tuition, college housing payments to kids, spouses, financial dependents of either slain or severely disabled or missing soldiers who served after 1980. Passed twice in the Senate, but never made it out of the Democratic-controlled Assembly in New York. But the state did provide $27 million in this year's budget for tuition assistance for the kids of illegal immigrants. College funding for veterans' families was not increased. Now, the president has come up with this idea of a sanctuary city refugee resettlement plan. It's got everybody worked up. We've been hearing from all the experts all weekend long insisting that the president doesn't have the legal authority to resettle asylum-seeking illegal aliens in sanctuary cities around the country. That, by the way, may not be true. Somebody needs to explain how then Obama got away with resettling tens of thousands of Syrian refugees in cities all over the country over the objections of 30 governors. And if you go back to 2016, Tribune Services, the most recent count shows that 11,491 Syrian refugees had arrived in the U.S. since October, the start of the federal fiscal year. Many have gone to states that protested, like Texas and Arizona, which have received about 825 refugees each. The Obama administration planned to accept at least 110,000 Syrian refugees in the coming year. Okay. Then we had an incident encouraged, I guess, by Open Borders Democrats in Washington. Now all these people say we better hurry and get in the United States before Trump finishes this wall or we'll never get it. Anyway, the New York Post pointed out Mexican authorities said a group of 350 migrants broke the locks at a gate at the Guatemalan border on Friday, forcing their way into Mexico to join the larger group of migrants already trying to make the trip to the southern border of the United States. Migrants were reportedly acting hostile and aggressive. A group of 350 pushed past police guarding the bridge, joined a larger group of 2,000. That's now becoming a big issue. The president also won a huge court victory late Friday in his battle as it relates to keeping tens of thousands of asylum-seeking illegal immigrants on the Mexican side of the border until their claims are evaluated. And actually, it came from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which almost always takes the left-wing side. Anyway, the Trump administration can continue to send asylum seekers back to Mexico after the appeals court temporarily reversed the ruling that halted the policy. That's an interesting win. But if you remember, Obama did this the exact same thing. It was funny because literally, who was it? Cher that was freaking out about this. Literally saying, we can't even afford it. Anybody that's here. Why are we taking on all these other people? We can't afford it. Oh, really? I mean, it's like Donald Trump lives in Democrats' heads 24/7. I'm reading some interesting stuff. The president now accumulating more money than any other president at this point in his presidency for re-election. Money matters. Big labor. The Associated Press had an article about, one of the big constituencies of the Democratic Party, but that may change. You look at the economic statistics. Why wouldn't big labor support Donald Trump, who actually creates real jobs? Just in the energy sector alone, we're going to have hundreds of thousands of career-paying jobs for people. Even truck drivers, they'll train truck drivers in the oil industry and pay you $100,000 a year. And I mean, it's amazing. A red wave is rising, FoxNews.com, and the Democrats are powerless to stop it. For once, The Hill has an article, Democrats are getting smart, mapping out an early 2020 strategy to retake the House. And then you got the more extremism. You got Cory Booker. Sanctuary City proposal of the president reflects his contorted view he has about humanity. Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan includes paying for illegal immigrants, but you can't get your own health insurance. And then Bernie had to defend being a millionaire this weekend. I didn't know it was a crime to write a good book. No, Bernie, why didn't you donate it to the poor? It's interesting to watch. Democrats, they're all happy about immigration, except when the president talks about, okay, well, we'll put them in your cities and they'll be protected by your policies. Then you got this guy. This is pretty interesting. I'm not falling into this Mayor Pete. I mean, it's interesting. His name is Buttigieg. That's his name. Pete Buttigieg, I guess, is the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, the home of Notre Dame. I mean, I guess to his credit, he looks like, he could be debating on a college debate team at Harvard. Sounds like it, too, when he gives a speech. I thought it was a terrible speech. Everybody's hyping. This is it. We can change everything, and it'll be different. We got to rethink everything. That means be a socialist. I don't think that's a good idea. We know socialism fails, and it's not going to work. But, yeah, I'm actually enjoying, though, watching the New York Times have to admit that most Americans benefited from the tax cut of Donald Trump. They didn't want to go there. They don't want to admit that. And, and by the way, Nancy Pelosi asked on 60 Minutes last night, what a fluff interview that was, about AOC and friends. That's like only 5 people. No, not exactly. Beto O'Rourke's family connections are a key to his millions. Much of Robert Francis's wealth came from his parents and his wife. O'Rourke co-owns a shopping mall worth 7 figures. He received half of it as a gift from his mom. And his wife has a trust fund valued between $1 and $5 million. And in 2017, Beto sold an apartment complex, which he co-owned with his mom, to a family friend and campaign donor. Whoopsie daisy. Yikes. Wonder how that's going to go. What else do we have? The controversy over Congresswoman Omar continues. Yeah, well, what she said, that thing that happened on 9/11, well, we know what that was. We lost nearly 3,000 Americans in the worst attack on our homeland in history. Pearl Harbor and 9/11. Think of those 2 dates. Hey, listen, Blinds.com. You want the best, the biggest names, designer names in blinds. You want, for example, to transform any room in your house. Maybe you want the faux wood blinds, light filtering, cellular shades, all the latest and greatest technology in blinds. I love the fact that you don't have to work those cords anymore. You just up, down, just press a button. Simple, and it works. Anyway, Blinds.com, by the way, they have over 30,000 five-star reviews, over 15 million windows covered. No store can beat their prices. Blinds.com is America's #1 online retailer for custom window coverings. And if you want energy efficiency, designer names, you got it. They got it all. And right now, it's the perfect time this spring to rejuvenate your home with Blinds.com, because now through April the 15th, well, this spring Black Friday sale is going on. Up to 45% off everything, plus an extra 5% off with the promo code Hannity. That's all on top of their already low prices. 45% off everything, plus an extra 5% off. All right, so take advantage. These are the best prices they've ever given. Blinds.com, promo code Hannity.
Ready to repeal and replace Obama's executive orders? Then you've come to the right place. The
20, radical, extreme, socialist in every way. The last cut, Andrew Yang, who wants to decriminalize heroin and fentanyl. Like 3 grains of salt, or the equivalent size of 3 grains of salt of fentanyl will kill a 250-pound man. Genius. Absolutely genius. Before that, that was Mr. Mayor Pete, if you care. That was, his name is Pete Buttigieg is his name. And, you know, what's amazing about this guy is, who is he? What have you done? And you come up with this brilliant idea. We're going to do something totally different. Yeah, socialism. Failed. Tried. Million times. Any way you want it. We are still following the tragedy out of France that's been unfolding all day. The fire breaking out at Notre Dame, the cathedral, 870 years old. Watching the spire collapse earlier today was heartbreaking. They were in the middle. You could see a lot of the scaffolding that was surrounding that spire, and it's a $6.8 million renovation they were in the midst of. They believe it's connected to that. We haven't gotten any definitive answers. We'll continue to watch and follow that story as we continue here. Anyway, John McLaughlin, pollster, strategist, and as we look at these 2020 candidates, you know, it's pretty interesting. First of all, we have Donald Trump has now accumulated more money to run for re-election than any first-term sitting president ever. That's point number one. Matt Towery is with us. He likes to consider himself retired, but he's anything but retired, because every time there's a big election, I get a full, accurate analysis about what's about to happen, and I basically steal it, and I say, this is what's going to happen, and just take all the credit, because he's retired. He doesn't want to be known anyway. And I've known him since my Atlanta days. Welcome, both of you. By the way, John, I give you a special shout out because, listen, you were the pollster for Bibi's historic re-election, 4 consecutive, 5 terms total. He will pass the first prime minister of Israel in terms of the longest serving prime minister in the course of this term. And what's so amazing about it is it was the biggest Labor Party loss in their history, number one. And number two, the margins were so big in terms of the right coalition led by Likud that I think the prime minister, thankfully, was reelected, even though they tried to indict him 5 weeks before an election.
Right. And it was really uncalled for that they would do that. But then, fortunately, the voters in Israel recognized what was going on, and it was a witch hunt. And in a conversation I had with President Trump back a few weeks ago, he said to me, you know, it was just like over here with the Attorney General. And I said, well, yeah, he did appoint that Attorney General, but he has a 10-year independent term. But he did it, and fortunately he won, and it was a decisive win. And today, I think the final right of center parties agreed to a coalition to recommend Netanyahu as the prime minister. So it was a decisive win for the right. And the country has moved right of center, Israel, because of the success. And Donald Trump is very, very well liked and appreciated in Israel. And the Israeli voters really appreciate the relationship that Prime Minister Netanyahu has with President Trump, where he was able to move the embassy He was able to recognize the sovereignty over the Golan. And most important, he withdrew from that really bad Iran deal, because in recent weeks you've seen where the Hamas was shooting rockets at Israel. Those are Iranian rockets. The Iranians paid for that with the money we gave them from the bad Iran deal. So,
great job.
Great job. Very important win.
Great job, Obama and Biden, and great job for you. I watched the president, and it's so funny because, for once, the Republicans now are thinking ahead. There's actually a Hill story today, Matt, how they're mapping out an early 2020 strategy to retake the House. I would say that is a strong possibility for the Republicans because the president's going to be on the ticket. There was a Fox News piece. A red wave is rising. I think all that's true. You see this new Green Deal. You see a desire with all the problems we have at the border. Democrats want to take down any border barriers whatsoever, eliminate ICE. The fact that they'd get rid of the combustion engine, gas and oil, planes and cows, and everything else is free, whether you work or are unwilling to work. None of that is going to sell to the American people. And it's like they're doing everything you could ever want them to do if you want them to lose like I do.
Well, it's a gift to Donald Trump. He couldn't have a better scenario. You have one quote-unquote moderate Democrat in the field, and that's Joe Biden. And the left has tried to attack him every way they can. They want him out of the race. That was pretty obvious over the last few weeks. And so I think John and I, the last time we were on your show, pretty much concluded that we believe that the nominee will be substantially left of center. And this country, although millennials may feel that that's something they can embrace, most other age groups don't go that way. And you see it, in fact, you talk about the spread. John, there were state legislatures this year that took votes on resolutions urging Congress to reject the Green Dream. So they're now taking it even to the state level. So when you think about the House of Representatives and what these guys have to run on, and then the turnout effect that Donald Trump brings, because he's going to bring that base out just in huge numbers, I think the Republicans could take the House again. And I think the president's in great shape. Right now, actually, Goldman Sachs went out on a ledge and said the president will likely be reelected, but they hedged. I wish they could be as bold in what they say about finances, and I wish they could be as correct.
No, they did definitely hedge it, but also Wall Street money now is beginning to flow towards who they think the winner will be, and they thought in 2016 it was Hillary. I think even if it was Biden, it doesn't matter. Biden still would have to run on the dumb things he says he'd have to run on the failed record of him and Obama, and he would be pulled so far to the left in the primary that, there's going to be hardly any discernible difference between any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see Biden as a nominee. I just think that the numbers, the number of candidates you have that are to the left, as they start to drop out, where does their support go? Unless Biden has a blowout in the first 2 or 3 primaries or in caucuses, which is highly unlikely given where they are, I just see this going to the left. It's going to be a very distinct choice, as Newt Gingrich would say, very distinct choice in the election season in November of 2020.
What did you think, John, about the president's trial balloon of sending illegal immigrants that are flooding into the country because they see the wall is being built and repaired and the money now is in the coffers and this is going to happen, and they're surging across the border to sanctuary cities, and the president is saying, you know what, because remember back in 2014 when we had a migrant surge and all of those kids, remember it was President Obama, was targeting small and mid-sized cities, and now Trump said, well, we'll just send all these people to your backyard, Nancy Pelosi. We'll send them to San Francisco. We'll send them to sanctuary states and cities. And then you see somebody like Cher is freaking out saying, well, wait, hang on a second. Well, if my state can't take care of its own, how can it take care of any more? I'm like, oh, maybe you're beginning to realize the cost on the criminal justice system, the educational system, the healthcare system. But I think for the president, it's a pretty smart jujitsu move on his part to say, okay, well, if you want them so bad and you don't want to help us fix the problem, okay, we'll let them move in next door to you.
Yeah, and you know what? This issue is helping the president because, like Matt said, the Democrats are in this derangement derby that they're going so far left to be the most anti-Trump candidate in the field because they're just not giving him anything. They won't even protect our country and the borders. They won't keep criminals out. They won't keep terrorists out. They can't even take care of these people. And the Democrats are looking bad, and the president's job approval is going up. And what's different about when we helped Donald Trump, when I helped Donald Trump win the primaries, he was taking positions that the majority of Americans agreed with. The Democrats now are taking positions like socialism, like government control of health care, like open borders, that the majority of Americans disagree with. And that's the key to winning. The contrast here is just terrible because the Democrats are so deranged that they won't even come to a compromise to secure the borders. And Shara, who you mentioned, her sending a tweet out supporting the president on this, she's been really anti-Trump until this point. So when you get those kind of conversions, it's a sign that the country's really moving this way because the Democrats are moving off the edge of the earth on the left.
Well said. Stay right there. All right, John McLaughlin is with us, pollster, most recently for Prime Minister Netanyahu, also worked on the Trump campaign. Matt Towery, who I have known for years, claims he's retired, but he's totally full of it. Because every election I get great information from him, too. Hey, listen, if you are like me and you want to be a responsible gun owner, you need to know about the USCCA. They help train and protect law-abiding, responsible gun owners. And also, by the way, they have their gun giveaway program going on right now, but it ends on April the 30th. Up to 17 chances to win. It happens at midnight every night. All you have to do to enter for free is text the word PROTECT. Pull out your cell phone, text the word PROTECT to the number 87222. That's simple. PROTECT. Text that to 87222. Official rules right on the page. And by the way, they'll also reveal which gun you can win today free. That's right, absolutely free. So don't miss your chance, and you can win it every single day through April the 30th. Just take out your cell phone, text the word PROTECT to 87222, PROTECT to 87222. And remember, the USCCA, they give you the information you need to be the responsible gun owner you need to be. We'll continue. By the dossier because its author doesn't authenticate it himself, has no idea if it's true. So wouldn't that mean that everybody that signed it committed a willful fraud against the court? All of them were warned by Bruce Orr in August of 2016.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we have a pretty significant body of evidence in my columns and other places now where you can see that they actually failed to tell the court about evidence of innocence, of things about Papadopoulos and Carter Page that would have proved that they were innocent of the charges that the FBI wanted to monitor them on. It's a really extraordinary abuse, and it's amazing to me that, one, the court hasn't done more publicly to raise questions or that the DOJ hasn't held anyone accountable yet. But I think there's another important thing that Devin Nunes said on television yesterday caught my ear. He said he sees a sprawling leaking conspiracy, meaning intelligence came in, it was distributed to a small number of people, and then leaks began to occur designed to further the narrative for the FISA. If U.S. officials were involved in leaking to create evidence so that they could further a FISA that they knew was on shaky ground, you would have a major criminal case. And I believe part of what Devin Nunes' referral will likely deal with is this leaking campaign. He said so on Maria Bartiromo yesterday, and I think we ought to keep our eye on that one, that the leaking may have been more than just to damage Donald Trump. It may also have been designed to create false evidence for the FISA application.
Unbelievable work again. John Solomon of the Hill, he'll be on Hannity tonight. We'll update this story. I have a funny feeling. Just pay attention in the days, weeks, months ahead. You're going to see a lot of movement on this. Thank you.
I agree.
All right, 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. When we come back, a look at the economy. It has never been better. Steve Moore will join us. Also, Newt Gingrich checks in with us, and our news roundup information overload as we continue.
Hi, I'm Robert Lamb, host of Stuff to Blow Your Mind and Invention, and I'd like to invite you to the science fiction podcasting event of the year, Transgenesis. Enter the world of the second oil age, a richly realized world in which humanity's thirst for oil takes them to the bottom of the sea and the threshold of an alien world. In each short-form episode, you'll follow Agent Sinov Khan as she investigates the disappearance of a missing Udex Petroleum executive aboard a sprawling deep-sea station devastation. It's a tale of intrigue, action, and sci-fi horror. A 10-episode season publishing in 2 parts, April 15th and 29th. Listen and subscribe to Transgenesis on Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you find your podcasts.
I may shut it down at some point, but I'd rather do tariffs. So Mexico, I have to say, has been very, very good. You know that over the last 4 days since I talked about shutting down the border. If they continue that, everything will be fine. If they don't, we're going to tariff their cars at 25% coming into the United States. So every time they make a car, it's a 25% tariff. That means we make money as opposed to lose money. We probably bring those car companies back into the United States. But if, on the other hand, it doesn't work, which it will, 100%, the tariffs will work just like they've worked with steel. Our steel industry is so hot right now because of what I did with tariffs. Same thing with aluminum. They'll work. But if it didn't work, I will close the border. I also am looking at an economic penalty for all of the drugs that are coming in through the southern border and killing our people. The economic numbers just came out. They're very, very good. Our country's doing unbelievably well economically. Most of you don't report that because it doesn't sound good from your perspective, but the country's doing really, really well. We have a lot of very exciting things going on. A lot of companies will be announcing shortly they're moving back into the United States. They're all coming back. They want to be where the action is. I'm heading to the border. We're building a lot of wall. We're going to show you a section. And a lot of things are happening. A lot of very positive things are happening.
Oh, good news for the country. Bad news for Democrats. Bad news for 2020 candidates. 24 till the top of the hour. The big story is, everyone's talking about creepy, crazy Uncle Joe Biden and all of the new Green Deal and the wealth tax and the 90% top corporate marginal rate, 70% top marginal rate for individuals, and everything will be free. But we'll eliminate the lifeblood of our economy, oil and gas, which we now are, for the first time in 70 plus years, energy independent and a net exporter of energy. And it's only the beginning, as we have 2 pipelines online now, ready to go. That means literally hundreds of thousands to millions of high-paying jobs once we really begin to tap into the very deep resources of natural gas and energy and oil and clean-burning coal that we have in the United States. Then also, people forget the oil at ANWR. That now has all obstacles have been removed. Oil companies will be moving in. And again, there are going to be hundreds of thousands of new high-paying career jobs for our fellow Americans, assuming the world doesn't end in 12 years. Assuming the new Green Deal is just this bizarre fantasy being bantered about. Assuming the wealth tax does not come into play or those marginal rates that I just mentioned. The president is exactly right on the economy. We've had great economic news now for a couple of days. The people that are benefiting the most, the people that I cared the most about in 2016, the forgotten men and women of America and blue-collar workers are enjoying wage hikes more so than at any other point in the past 15 years. The people that have been benefiting the most from the president's deregulation and the biggest tax cut in history, that's right, those that were in poverty on food stamps under Obama. Millions have left those roles. And when you look at the numbers, you see, another 200,000 jobs created in March as we move now closer to the creation of 6 million new jobs in America. May sound like a small deal, but I'll take it. Sears, after years of closures, they are now beginning to open a more, smaller, more concise stores around the country. A lot of it's going to be focused on their tools, Craftsman and Kenmore, their washers and dryers and other appliances. And that means more jobs for people also. Steve Moore is with us, author of Trumponomics, the Inside the America First plan to revive our economy, senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. And I understand that you will apparently be moving to the Federal Reserve Board. Some other name I heard is Herman Cain.
Hi, Sean. How cool is that Herman Cain has now been nominated as well? So we will be, I think, quite a team over there. And, by the way, everything you said on the economy is so spot on. And I am so proud of this president. I was privileged to work as a senior economic advisor to Donald Trump. And one of the claims about me that the left is making is, well, he's going to be too loyal to Trump. And there are things I disagree with Donald Trump about, but you got to love what this guy has done for the economy. I saw the president 2 weeks ago, and I just said, only half jokingly, I said, Mr. President, you have to stop creating so many jobs. We don't have enough workers to fill all these jobs. And that jobs report that came out today is a blockbuster. And I'm going to give you one statistic, Sean, that just blows me away. I don't know if it blows you away. 7.6 million. That's the number of unfilled jobs in the American economy. That's the surplus number of jobs. That's bigger than the entire population of Indiana.
You know what's amazing about this? Because I knew one statistic that I had been throwing around is we have 1 million more jobs at least available than we actually have people on unemployment. So it almost brings you to the point of full employment. Forget the records. I mean, it's amazing that I'll debate liberals sometimes, and I'll say, all right, well, this is Obama's 8-year record. He had 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty. And by the way, crazy Uncle Joe, creepy Uncle Joe's going to have to run on this if he gets the nomination. The lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, worst recovery since the 40s, lowest homeownership rate in 51 years. He took on more debt than all 43 presidents before him combined. Right. And the only president never to reach 3% GDP growth in his entire 2-year term, ever. And, when you look at those numbers, they say, well, he inherited a bad economy. I'm like, 7 years ago, I mean, he had time to fix all of this, but he made everything worse.
Well put. And, I like to cite none other than Barack Obama himself, who I think it was about a month before the 2016 election. You remember this. I know you played on the air where Obama says, well, how is Trump going to create all these jobs? How is he going to bring manufacturing and construction back with a magic wand? Well, I think this president must have a magic wand because here's another statistic for you, John. Since the election of Donald Trump, the United States has created 1 million manufacturing, construction, and mining jobs. And it's like a U-turn. They were falling, and then Trump's come in, and they're all back big time.
Well, I mean, those are the jobs that, again, that's the forgotten men and women in this country.
Exactly.
One of the things that I really think the president doesn't get credit for, he doesn't allow these companies to leave without getting on a phone and saying, why would you consider leaving this great country? What is the obstacle that exists within government that would incentivize you to leave? Now, and a lot of the companies, I guess it all started with Carrier Air Conditioner, they left, but now they're all coming back. When companies now are able to repatriate their monies back to America, what is the percent on that? Around 10%?
Yeah, and the latest estimate is a little under $1 trillion, not $1 billion, $1 trillion has been brought back to the United States in just the last about a year and a half.
And by the way, and that continues. There's no time limit on the amount of time companies can pick up companies that left America. They can come back.
It's going to keep streaming in. And look, the tax cut has had a lot to do with this. We were unapologetically pro-American business. We wanted businesses to succeed. We wanted to make them competitive in the world because if you don't have healthy businesses, you can't have healthy jobs. Maybe the thing I'm most proud of, I think the president probably would share this, thought, is that the wages are growing. I mean, and not just wages for high-income people. In fact, the Wall Street Journal had an amazing report a couple of weeks ago, Sean, that the highest wage gains have been for the lowest income and lowest skilled workers. That's what happens when you create a tight labor market.
Well, the thing is, and then I look at these proposals, you tell me, if there's a 90% top corporate marginal tax rate and a 70% individual marginal tax rate, tell me, to me, if you want to know what's going to happen, just look at New York, California, Illinois, and New Jersey. where there is now been and continues a mass exodus of people with money that have their businesses, and they're leaving in droves. And you look at the population increases in places like Florida and Texas. Tennessee, the Carolinas. Yep. They're leaving for these states, which, by the way, also offer better weather. And right. But they don't have the burdensome regulation or the high taxation to deal with. And it is incentivizing all of them to leave. And they're leaving.
Well, that's exactly right. I just wrote a column called The 4 States of the Apocalypse, and I'll bet you can guess which 4 of those are. It's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and my home state of Illinois. Those are totally Democratic-dominated states with very liberal policies, high tax rates, high regulations, forced union rules, and those states are in a state of financial collapse. When I go to Florida and Texas, all I see is license plates from Connecticut and Illinois and New Jersey.
Well, yeah, I know. All right, so let's talk about now. We had the historic low rates from the Fed and no increases barely during the Obama years, correct?
The rates were very low under Obama, and my concern is that the Trump. The reason I've caught some flack lately is because I was very critical, as Donald Trump was, that the Fed was raising interest rates at a time when we had high employment. The best labor force market in 50 years, high growth, 4% last summer, and no inflation. And I just couldn't understand why the Fed would start raising rates when everything is going so well for the American economy. And I've taken some flack from that, but that's where I stand. I want stable prices, but I don't see when you don't have any unemployment, you get a booming economy. Why disrupt that picture?
Look, America's done well with, to me, they do it. It's almost like the Fed was helping President Obama politically, and then it almost seems like, oh, Trump's president, what do we care if it impacts the economy? That's the feeling I got. Am I wrong?
Look, there may be some truth to that, but the point is, look, we have had actually slight deflation right now. I mean, show me anywhere where prices are rising, and I guarantee you talk to farmers, you talk to the people in the oil patch, they don't see any inflation. They see their prices falling. So, I'm for stable prices. I think that's the best the Fed can do. And I'm for high growth. And when I get over there to the Fed, I want to be the growth hawk, the guy who believes, as Trump, we used to tell Trump, Larry Kudlow and I, sir, we think we can get to a 3 to 4% growth rate with the right policies. And Trump, the ever optimist, would put his hand and say, I want 5% growth. I don't know if we can get to 5, but you said it. Obama never got to 3% growth in 8 years in office, and here Trump is in the second year, and we got 3% growth.
Unbelievable. All right, stay right there. Steve Moore, he, along with Herman Cain, there should be a major shift now at the Fed, and that would be good news for the economy. It turns out that the current Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, is, there are people that have, let's say, policies that I don't think are conducive to the economic growth that America can possibly have. Low interest rates for me mean, people can buy their first home. That means that, older people can refinance their homes at a lower rate and save money every month and stay in the home that they love. Quick break. Right back. We'll continue. All right, as we continue, Steve Moore, author of Trumponomics, Inside the America First Plan to Revive Our Economy, senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation, and also here to set the record straight about all these attacks against him surrounding your personal life, taxes, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I've known you all these years. I just hate to even go down this road because I see it and I know it for total political BS, but, it's part of the, it's part of the way things go in Washington.
Well, what's going on here, Sean, is that, I have a long record. You and I have known each other for many, many years, and I'm a staunch free market economic guy who believes in lower taxes and less regulation, and that's not where the left is. And they have 7 full-time reporters, investigative reporters after me, looking at every aspect of my life, the girls I dated in high school and, all of these things. And, they went in a very, and I thought an incredibly underhanded and scurrilous way. They looked at my divorce record, and, it was, what is my divorce 10 years ago have to do with my qualifications for the Fed?
Right, that's really 55% of the population. It's ridiculous. Steve Moore, though, listen, I'm sorry you have to go through all that. It's so typical, though, isn't it? It's just predictable, typical. Meanwhile, creepy Uncle Joe Biden is smelling hair, rubbing noses, kissing strangers, and hugging them as tightly as possible. It's weird. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. As we continue, News Roundup Information Overload Hour coming up.
Isn't it time we tell our side of the story? I'm Patrick Corelchi.
And I'm Adriana Cortez, and we're the hosts of Red Pilled America, a new storytelling podcast.
Red Pilled America is not another talk show covering the day's news. We are all about telling stories. Stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear. Stories the media mocks. Stories about everyday Americans that the elites ignore. You could think of Red Pilled America as audio documentaries, and we promise only one thing: the truth.
Every week, Red Pilled America hopes to inform you on a specific topic, but our ultimate goal is to entertain you. Each episode will pose a simple question. Can the Me Too movement really clean up Hollywood? Why is Los Angeles having a homeless surge? Is fake news really a new phenomenon? Then we'll look for the answer in the stories of the dismissed men and women all over our great country.
Visit the iHeartRadio app to listen to Red Pilled America. That's iHeartRadio and search Red Pilled America.
Stay right here for our final news roundup and information overload.
We got 2 million people in jail in this country, and a number of them are in jail for felonies. Many states say, okay, we're putting you away for a long period of time. You're going to pay a heavy price for that. But we're also taking away your right to participate in a democratic society. You can't vote anymore.
The U.S.-Israel relationship is one of the most important relationships that we have on the planet. And that relationship, if it is to be successful, must transcend partisanship in the United States, and it must be able to transcend a prime minister who is racist.
All right, that was, first Bernie, and then Beto, Bozo, Robert Francis O'Rourke. Excuse me. The elections in Israel are going on now live in Israel as we speak. News Roundup Information Overload Hour, 800-941-SEAN. There has only been, before President Trump, one figure on the world stage that has had a singular focus and understanding and moral clarity of evil in our time. And that, of course, is radical Islamists. And now with the partnership, which is the best relationship we've ever had, especially after 8 years of Obama, we've ever had with Israel. We're not dropping $150 billion in cash and other currency on the tarmac for mullahs in Iran. He has been a Churchillian figure. We're told the election's going to be close. I hope people in Israel, if you hear this, that you're out voting for Likud. Newt Gingrich is with us, former Speaker of the House. How are you, sir? Oh, and by the way, Newt has a new podcast that's out, and Newt's World, we call it, and it's on all Apple products and wherever you might go for a podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I think you sort of captured. I mean, it's a little hard to walk through the list and believe it's true. The Democrats have literally, I think, in a way, lost their head. They're just drifting into this mindless left wing. The good example is one of the things that Sanders confuses. In Florida, the question was, once you have paid your price and once you are back out in society, should you be allowed to vote? And nobody in Florida voted on a referendum to let you vote while you're in prison. But they just can't help themselves. They keep moving in a direction that is, less and less rational, but sounds really good if you're at a left-wing fundraiser.
Well, it also sounds good, I guess, to people. I mean, whether you're willing or unwilling to work, you get all the benefits, and they're going to tax you at a 70% top marginal rate for individuals and a 90% corporate tax rate. And by the way, if you save too much money, then they're going to come back for another bite at the apple with the wealth tax. That's going to pay for government child care, according to Elizabeth Warren, and they're not done yet. Then when you die, they'll take more. I mean, it's
well, but let me tell you why this all just strikes me as I've been here before. In 1972, George McGovern, who up until this year was the most radical person nominated by the Democratic Party, he came out with what he thought was a very clever idea, which was going to be a $2,000 demo grant. Everybody get $2,000. And after a couple of weeks of talking about it, it was overwhelmingly unpopular. And people, most Americans, believe in the work ethic. And most Americans believe that they shouldn't be taxed so somebody down the street can avoid doing anything. And if you go out and you talk to folks in working neighborhoods, they'll tell you there are people who figure out how to get on welfare, how to get on food stamps, how to rig the system every way they can. And hardworking Americans don't like that. That they actually have a distinctly negative reaction, which is why liberals do better among college professors than they do among blue-collar workers.
Well, I think you're right about the instincts of Americans, but, a great line, by the way. I don't know if you heard Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo's a tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. Now, he's complaining that the New York State has come up with a $2.3 billion shortfall this year. New York, New Jersey, California are all losing population. No income tax states like Tennessee and Florida and Texas and even the Carolinas, they're all gaining population. Florida last year and Texas, nearly 400,000. Listen to Cuomo. You're going to love this.
We have one of the most progressive tax codes in the United States, which is a good thing, which means the richer you are, the more you pay. However, that presents a very fragile economy, because then you are relying on a very small number of people for the vast amount of your tax dollars. 1% of the taxpayers pay nearly half of all the taxes. 1% pay nearly half of all those taxes. Those 1% are the richest people in the state, they're the richest people in the country, and they are the most mobile people in the country. And you see the chart on the bottom. Top 1%, about 46%. Top 5%, 63% of all the revenue. Top 10%, 74% of all the revenue. Tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. We did. Now, God forbid the rich leave.
They left, Mr. Speaker. They're leaving. What happens nationwide when the country adopts that policy?
Do you remember when you were a child and there was this children's fairy tale about killing the goose that laid the golden egg?
Right.
And this was the sort of thing that was taught to people to sort of suggest to them, if you've got somebody who's being that generous, maybe you should be nice to them instead of nasty. I've never heard a liberal ever before admit what percent of taxes come from the top 1%. I mean, that was an amazing moment for Cuomo to admit that half of all the taxes in New York State are the top 1%.
It's insane.
Exactly right. I mean, at what point does somebody look at their budget? I talked to a guy recently who moved out of California to Texas, and with the difference just in not paying a state income tax, could buy a house in Texas at no cost to his budget.
That's why they're gaining popular. People aren't stupid. And by the way, no business with a 90% marginal tax rate is ever going to, let me build a business in the United States. They're going to leave, and they're going to take their money and their factories with them.
Right. And, of course, that's going to make, I think, one of the central themes of 2020 is going to be the objective fact that this president continues to create jobs, has a pretty good model for how to continue creating jobs. We have the lowest unemployment, I think, now since '69. For African Americans, the lowest unemployment. For Latinos, the lowest unemployment. For women, the lowest unemployment. And at some point, we're going to have a reality check and say to people, okay, you have a party that's putting you to work. By the way, we are also seeing wages rise faster for high school graduates than for college graduates for the first time in 2 generations. So you're seeing more money in your pocket. You have a job. You have a look ahead to real prosperity. Or you could go with these left-wing folks and decide to destroy the economy. And I think that'll be one of the central thematics of the campaign in 2020.
Well, a lot of challenges. I honestly think it's like the greatest gift in the world that they've gone so far and so hard to the left, and even in the primary, I think they're even going harder left, and I don't think anyone's going to come out of that primary that is not one of these new Green Deal people, and I think that almost guarantees Trump gets a second term. Let me ask you about another issue I know you've been following. Most people don't even know this, but China's first email and the rise of their online activities, and in other words, their building of the internet. I know initially they saw the internet as a tool for scholars and scientists, but something is happening that may impact this country and our security and privacy on levels that we never imagined before.
Well, I can't tell you how glad I am that you've raised this issue. The whole transition to the fifth generation, what's called 5G, is going to be enormous. It's going to have like 1,000 times the capacity of our current system. And as of today, according to the Defense Innovation Board report last week, the Chinese are so far ahead of us that we are in real danger for the first time of losing strategically to China and having China define the internet of the 21st century. And this would be catastrophic, and it has really been extraordinarily difficult. I've been working on this issue for months now, and to watch the AT&T CNN team just lie about it, which is what they've been doing. I mean, they've been desperately trying to stop the kind of changes we need. Worldwide right now, Huawei, which is the big Chinese company, is just cleaning our clock. We have no effective response, and the president gets it. He's trying to move the system, but between the lobbyists for AT&T and the bureaucrats who are just sort of mindlessly slow, we are. And you've known me a long time. You've never heard me be quite this direct. We are in danger of suffering a strategic defeat from which we may not recover, because once the Chinese control the internet across the planet, they can tell us, well, we're going to keep them out of the U.S. Well, fine. You want to do business in India? You want to do business in South Africa? You want to do business in New Zealand? You're going to be on Chinese equipment. So, unless we're prepared to really rethink this and launch an American offensive and do everything we can to define an American internet, I really do believe this will be a catastrophic disaster.
All right, look at a guy like, any of these big hackers out there. A lot of them, now in their 40s. They were hacking into our Department of Defense, NASA, and all these agencies when they were 16. We still have not built up an effective defensive measure so our government can never get hacked. Forget about the average American citizen, which is important if you believe in privacy, as I do. But if they're getting into our government and getting our government secrets, I mean, that's what the whole Hillary Clinton email espionage scandal was all about. We believe, and Comey was about to report it, that 6 foreign intelligence agencies hacked into that server in that mom and pop bathroom closet.
Well, then that's dangerous. But what's also dangerous is if you end up in a modern battlefield where information matters, and the Chinese have the ability to put false information into your systems, so you don't know where you are or what you're doing or where your equipment is, you could be defeated before you ever fire the first shot. I mean, that's how serious this stuff is. And trying to get on my newsletter on Wednesday is going to be about the way in which the American news media has just sold the country out. You look at the coverage that people have given to pure junk, and the inability to get the New York Times, the Washington Post, or others to take seriously the survival of the United States. And that'll be a big issue, I think, in 2020. We have a president who really thinks American survival matters. You have a Democratic Party who thinks that that's all silly, that we can have open borders, weak defense, and be passive in the world and betray our allies, and everything will work out fine. As you pointed out, I couldn't help but think when you were describing the $150 billion, I mean, what if Obama had, by mistake, sent the $150 billion to Israel instead of Iran? Think how much better off we'd be today.
What do you think of?
It's wild.
I'm obviously concerned because now it's voting day in Israel, and I look at Bibi as frankly for a long time until President Trump was elected as the sole single voice of moral clarity and understanding the real nature of the biggest threat in our time, which I believe is radical Islam, as we saw on 9/11. And but now Israel has its best partner. Look at Golan now. The Golan Heights are now recognized as Israel's. Look at the embassy moved to Jerusalem, where it belongs, the capital, from Tel Aviv. And then you have people like, Robert Francis referring to this as, he's evil. And I'm like, wow. The same guy that doesn't want any walls on our southern border, by the way.
Right. I mean, you have to ask yourself, first of all, what's the moral right of somebody who's not in danger, not at risk, is not suffering from rocket attacks, hasn't lost a brother. As you know, Bibi lost his brother on the raid in Entebbe to rescue the people who were in the airline years ago in Uganda. Hasn't had family members who were killed in the Holocaust. I mean, people like O'Rourke who've lived a privileged life, who are personally wealthy, and have never known hardship, when they start criticizing somebody whose country's very survival is always at risk. And that's what people need to remember. The Iranians are pouring missiles into South Lebanon for Hezbollah. The Iranians have been subsidizing Hamas, which regularly fires missiles into Israel. The Syrians, if they got the Golan back, would use it as a base to once again fire down on the settlers and the tourists and the farmers down around the Sea of Galilee. People like Beto literally have no notion how dangerous and how hard the world can be. And I think that's very dangerous in a national leader.
All right, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Don't forget his podcast, Newt's World, on Apple, any podcast near you. Thank you, sir, for being with us. We appreciate it. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. We got an incredible Hannity tonight, including 2 investigative reports. We'll tell you more about that. And we're naming names tonight. Yes, who are those people that have been lying to you? Our top 50 coming up tonight. Hannity, 9 Eastern. Quick break. Right back. We'll continue. All right, 25 now till the top of the hour. I'm really getting sick and tired of the lie, which is that, Kirstjen Nielsen is responsible for the separation of children. By the way, we're getting lectured by the people that won't meet with angel moms and dads, the people that have permanent separation. We're literally, the people making that allegation are the same people that want to tear down walls and eliminate ICE. They don't seem to care at all about the permanent separation of 4,000 homicides in a 2-year period, or 30,000 sexual assaults in a 2-year period, or 100,000 violent assaults in a 2-year period by, yes, criminal aliens in this country. Is it the 98? No, it's the 2%. Real families, real crime. Now, the other point of this is simple. Where were they when Obama had the same policy? The person that fixed it was Donald J. Trump, the president. The person that did not fix it or lift a finger to fix it is their ever so beloved Barack Obama. And now they want to blame Secretary. She'll forever be known as this.
Kirstjen Nielsen is out as Homeland Security Chief. Yeah, well, I'd hold that applause. I'd hold on. Now, to take it supposedly it's going to be even tougher, the stance at the border. Families being separated, seeing kids in cages, how much tougher are they going to be?
As much as people don't like Kirstjen Nielsen, and she'll always be remembered for the separation of families, it's not her fault that we're seeing these numbers come in. But to just shoo her out and expect that someone like Stephen Miller or someone's going to be tougher is going to solve the problem.
I don't know what they're going to do to these kids.
What's fascinating to me is that I believe she sold her soul, because she did become the face of separating babies from their parents. We now know that it's going to take about 2 years to even find out the true extent of this horror, because thousands of children were separated from their families.
And for the rest of her life, people will look at her and think, oh, that's the woman who put children in cages. That's the woman who broke up families across the border. And you know what? They'll be right, because she implemented that policy. Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, sort of created it, but she implemented it. And, she's going to get what she deserved.
Remember, when it comes to Kirstjen Nielsen's service as Homeland Security Secretary, is that matter that the administration dealt with the zero tolerance policy in the spring of 2018. It was Secretary Nielsen who said that it was not an intention of the administration